It's just all about love and life and living in freedom. That's what it's all about for me now.
Welcome to the Rich Spinster podcast. This is Alexis, and it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It is a beautiful day, and I am feeling the hope of September. I am feeling my September 8th birthday approaching. I am feeling all the goodness of Virgo season. So, shout out to all the Virgos out there. I want to wish you all a very happy Virgo season. There has been something that's been on my mind for weeks now, and that is the funding cuts to PBS and NPR. The PBS cuts really hurt. And I was trying to think about it and trying to put it into words. And I was finding such difficulty doing so because I cannot stress enough what the value of PBS and not only what it has meant to so many people, but what it has meant to so many children, what it meant personally to me. Y'all remember all of that great children's television? Sesame Street, 321, Contact, Reading Rainbow. But my personal favorite, the one that was the most influential on me, was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was everything that I needed as a child because what it brilliantly did, was filled in the gaps. I was raised in a home where education was stressed. I was raised in a home where values were stressed. And I was raised in a home where obedience was stressed. But I wasn't really raised in a home where uniqueness and your own individuality was particularly stressed. I struggle to think of a time that I had a conversation growing up in my home about my own personal uniqueness and the value of that. And those are gaps that many households probably have. But that gap for me was filled in by Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I am a culmination of collard greens, cornbread, and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Those are the things that truly formed who I am as a person. Mr. Rogers told me everything that I needed to hear, but nobody thought about. He talked to me about my own personal value, my worth. He also told me that the differences in my neighbors were also things that I should value and respect and learn more about. He told me there is room for everybody and that nobody's difference is a reason to treat them differently because they are also just as special. He taught me about disabilities. I remember being a small child and I was literally afraid of little people, dwarves. I was afraid of them. I remember being in the Publix grocery store and I was walking to find something by myself and my grandfather was on another aisle and I remember turning down this one aisle and there in front of me stood a little person. And I stood there and I remember the man turning and looking at me. And I just stared at him because I'd never seen a little person before. And I had just this fear. Now I wish I could tell this story and say, but because of Fred Rogers, I looked at that little person and I understood that he was just like me, just a human being, and I felt no fear. But I was a kid, okay? I was a kid and I was scared of that little person. But what I was able to do was to see other differences. I was able to see differences in people. I was able to see people in wheelchairs and know that could probably be my friend. They were probably funny and we may have had the same interests. Fred Rogers taught me that differences meant everything and nothing at the same time. They meant everything because who we are is so important. Who we are matters and it should matter to each other. But those differences should not be a means by which we separate people. I learned that from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Growing up, I experienced a lot of correction. I did not feel a freedom of spirit, although many people probably thought I seemed to be a very free child. I didn't feel very free because I was also a very tender souled being. I was very tender souled. It didn't take a lot for my feelings to be bruised. And so, what I needed to do to protect my feelings was to build up this wall around me as a kid. If I was tougher, if I was disconnected, I would be hurt less. That's what I thought. And I did that. I had that tough exterior, but my inner world was soft. My inner world was very tender, and I felt my safest to expose that inner world when I was watching public television, particularly Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers was an incredible human being. I often say Mr. Rogers is the greatest white man to ever live, and I stand on that. And I will also say he's the only preacher I have ever believed in. And why? Because Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian minister, and not once did he mention it during the show. Not once did he say, God loves you. Not once did he mention religion, prayer, Jesus, none of it. Do you know why? Because he was too busy living it. He was too busy showing us what a Christian looked like instead of telling us what a Christian should be like. Fred Rogers was a prime example of walking the walk. The messages of his show, love, respect, friendship, peace, all of those things were talked about all of the time, every day during those 30 minutes that he shared with us. I cannot tell you what an impact that every day had on me. He exposed us to each other. He taught us how we could find safety in each other and even in our differences. He had friends come over of different ages so we could know that life is not just about the young, that the older people have so much to give us. We have so much to gain from their wisdom, and we had so much joy to give them as young people. Fred Rogers showed us that everybody mattered. Fred Rogers showed us that Black lives mattered. One example was Officer Clemens when he put his feet in the same little kiddie pool that Officer Clemens put his feet in because they needed to cool down from the hot summer. He did that for a reason. He did that because white people in America were pouring bleach and other harmful chemicals in public pools to keep Black people out of them. He showed white children not only is it safe to swim in a pool with people of different races, but that you should want to do it. It's fun. They can be your friend. In that episode, I believe that he was talking to the white children of America, but in his way, I believe that he was saying to the white parents of America, may your children be better. May they know better. There I was, 30 minutes a day, having an adult who I trusted tell me that I am special, that nothing about me needed to be changed, that I was good, and that it was okay if I wasn't good at something, that didn't take away my specialness. I needed that. And I dare say most children need that. They need that foundational knowledge that tells them, I am enough. I really got that when I was a child through Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I knew that I was enough because he told me so, and I believed him. I remember one time being picked on at school because this kid, Horace, said I had a big nose. I'll never forget Horace telling me that I had a big nose. And it stuck with me, right? I was like, why would he say that? It was just a random attack. I don't know why I caught that stray from Horace that day, but he told me, you got a big nose. Well, I told Horace to kiss my ass because, see, Mr. Rogers was still working on me at that time. He was still working on me at that time. I failed. Okay, Mr. Rogers didn't really tell me how to respond in that moment, so I responded in the best way that I could, and I told Horace to kiss my ass. But when I got home and I started thinking about the day, I kind of laughed off what Horace said. And I laughed it off not because I was mature for my age, which I wasn't. I was about 7 or 8. Yes, I did tell someone to kiss my ass at 7 or 8. I mean, I whispered it so the teacher couldn't hear. Didn't matter what Horace said, I didn't know him. I knew Mr. Rogers. Every day he was telling me, there is nobody quite like you. And I was proud of that. That foundation that was provided for me through public television sheltered me. It really sheltered me. And I don't think that I would be the person that I am today had it not been for the influence of public television, particularly Fred Rogers. He gave an expression of care to every child that watched him. I come from a generation where there was a lot of do as you are told. I didn't feel able to truly discuss my feelings in a very safe way when I was younger. And so I bottled them up inside. I was silent about things that bothered me the most. And I found myself getting very angry because I was keeping all of these feelings inside. Well, Mr. Rogers changed that for me. Mr. Rogers said that you should talk about your feelings. One of the greatest lessons I've ever had in my life came from Fred Rogers when he told me that anything that is human is mentionable. And if it is mentionable, it is manageable. That is the sole reason I don't believe in shame. I felt that shame used to play like a big part in culture when I was growing up. I would hear people being talked about, and I would hear, oh, she should be ashamed of herself. And then I would see when people would argue with each other or they would have some sort of back and forth, some sort of misunderstanding. There was always a point where one of them would try to shame the other. And so I was always the person who said, one, I will always keep what's sacred to me sacred. I will not share it. I will not have anyone be able to use anything against me as a weapon. I realized that if I had shame about anything, then that was another person controlling me. How could I live a life where I didn't have shame? Why do I have shame? And so I started really analyzing my feelings when it came to shame. What kind of bullshit did I buy into that created shame? I was working through that shit in my early 20s. And then I started looking at the things that I felt shame about and realized how ridiculous those things were. And I was only feeling shame about those things because society told me I should be ashamed of them. And who the fuck is society? So I started thinking about those kinds of things more and more and figuring out, wait a minute, I'm a human being. Anything human is mentionable, meaning you can talk about any fucking thing that is a part of your human experience. Whoa. That was life-changing for me. Wait a minute. You mean I don't have to keep all this shit inside? That sort of emotional maturity, emotional work, that is the work of Fred Rogers, but that's also God's work. Every child deserves to have that sort of foundation. I learned more about love and compassion towards others and myself from Fred Rogers that I've learned from any religious ceremony I've ever witnessed. So let me be clear about something. Defunding PBS, an attack on PBS, is not an attack on public television itself. It's an attack on empathy, because empathy is the greatest threat to this regime. This is a concerted effort to eradicate this society of thoughtfulness and compassion. They have to make sure that you blame your neighbors. They want to make sure that you recognize the differences in your neighbors and become more suspicious of them. They want to make sure that you believe that because of that person's difference, that makes your life harder. They want you to believe the lie. It only works for them if you believe that other people are the reason for whatever deficit you are experiencing in your lives, and that if you target those people, your life will be better. When I see what is happening, I am filled with something that is hard to simply call rage, because rage, the word rage, doesn't even feel fiery enough, because those children will grow up to be adults. And what happens to adults that grow up feeling unloved, unsupported, uncared for, unlistened to, misunderstood, ignored. There's an African proverb that says, a child who is exiled from the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I feel this rage. I feel it so deeply that I have to allow myself to take a moment, that I have to make sure that I inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. And I'm doing all of that just to stay sane in a place that's full of insanity. And we are still here, and we're doing the best that we can in the neighborhoods that we are in. And then sometimes I am just sad. I'm just sad about it all. And then I'm back to being mad. Then I think to myself, what do you do with all the mad you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole world seems oh so wrong and nothing seems very right. What do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag? Do you see how fast you can go? It's great to be able to stop when you have planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to. I can stop when I wish. I can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this. And I know that feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl to someday be a woman, and a boy to someday be a man, or anywhere in between, 2025 version. That's what I think sometimes. So those lessons of Mr. Rogers really helps me when I'm getting cut off in traffic. Those lessons of Mr. Rogers really prevents me from making a decision that could make me somebody's cellmate. He's responsible for so much of my childhood care that came from outside of the home. Now the problem is some of these motherfuckers never watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Or the problem is some of these motherfuckers have forgotten the lessons of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I wonder who I would be without the foundation of public television. I don't know. I would like to think that I'd still be kind and loving, but I'm not sure. Mr. Rogers, I think, had the hardest job in television. And he said one of the hardest things in the world is to make goodness attractive. That's one of the toughest assignments you'll ever be given. But I am here to say that we still have the generations of us who were raised on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And we ain't soft. Well, don't think it's soft over here. Ain't shit soft over here but the butter. Because I think in order to be compassionate, in order to be loving, in order to have empathy, you have to be strong. We're out there. And the truth of the matter is we outnumber the rest of them. Mr. Rogers helped me understand that the world is not always a kind place. What do we do with it now? How do we navigate this world with this anger inside of us? How can we shine our light with this anger inside of us? I'm still trying to work this shit out, Fred Rogers. He had such concerns about children's exposure to television, particularly the exposure to violence and what that meant, the desensitizing. We can see that he was right. It's like he talked about when you're afraid of things, when things happen in the world that scare you and you have no control over them, what do? He said his mother told him to look for the helpers. And it seems like such a simple message, right? But it is a message that we all need to remember as we look for the helpers right now, because they are out there. We just have to see them, look for them, and join them. Mr. Rogers told me that I was enough. Fred Rogers told me that I was enough, and I believed him, and he was right. Whew, if he did that for me, what can he do for you? What can his words do for you? In fact, I want to encourage people to watch some of the reruns of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Remind yourself of those lessons that life has basically forced you to forget. Listen, the next time you have a big argument with somebody and they are really spiraling and losing it, you really want to piss them off, go ahead and tell them, what do you do with the mad that you feel? What do you do with the mad that you feel? Because Mr. Rogers prepared me for a lot of things in life. He did, but he didn't totally prepare me for these cunts. He did not prepare me for the childish, the uneducated, the narcissistic, the toxic, the supremacist. No, he did not prepare me for the cunts. Maybe with more PBS, more Mr. Rogers, more care, maybe that prevents more cunts. It is not surprising that there is an attack on this sort of programming because this sort of programming prevents this sort of regime. Final original episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired August 31st of 2001, so about 24 years ago this week. Mr. Rogers died February 27th of 2003 of stomach cancer. Let me tell you something. Even when I'm not at my best, I'm not at my worst, and that is because of Fred Rogers. Somebody better thank him. How he ended the program was also powerful. You've made this day special just by being you. There is no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. Thank you for listening to the Rich Spinster podcast. Please subscribe and follow me at Rich Spinster on Instagram, and you can listen to the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and Spotify. Have a wonderful week, neighbor.